Hello. I know it's been a little bit since my last couple videos. My apologies for that. Basically, I just kind of started on one project with the car and it kind of delved into a few others, and before I knew it, I ended up having half the floor out again and having to fix just a bunch of small problems. The reason that this video is going to be a little bit different is I kind of wanted to just walk through everything I had been doing with the car so far, what these last kind of 2 months have been since the last few videos I've done, mostly because they're all kind of in one part of the car, especially with the trans tunnel and the kind of problems I had with it. So earlier on, I had finished with the motor mounts in the front and started working my way back towards doing the trans mounts. I knew from the original mounts for the 4-speed, the 6-speed is just bigger and therefore the mounts would have to be larger and further back. I had no idea kind of what all that would entail until I got under there, and that's about where 2 to 3 weeks got eaten up pretty quick. So basically, once I had the engine and the mounts, bolted the transmission up to it, started putting it in the car, raising it up, and realized it was actually bottoming out in the tunnel. The only thing I could really do is just keep chopping till it would fit, and that's about what I did. Really, it's just the housing around the inside of the tunnel, which was bottoming out on the top of the trans. So it was really just a matter of cutting that out, seeing how much room I would really have to squeeze that 6-speed in, and really just making room for it. Eventually it was able to fit in there really well, and it was a matter of building back a lot of strength and structure to it. Basically what I decided to do was just have a real simple approach to it. Just building it all mostly out of 3/16 plate and making a really nice ridge back out of it, a lot of good strength in the tunnel, and then building arms to accommodate that original cross member for the transmission. That was something I'm really happy with. It looks really good. I know it's going to work, and it still braces really well. A lot of the stuff you'll see is where a lot of that plate is welded into actually the floor. I went ahead and flushed it with the rest of the floor, and then knowing that the 3/16 across the front, along with the arc and with the original trans cross member, I feel really good with the strength with it. So I'm really not concerned about any kind of, stress on that part of the car. I think it should be really good. It's also really tied in pretty well structurally with the other parts of the suspension, the cross members, and the rest of it. So I feel good about it. I think it's going to hold up really well. It's a great fit for the transmission and the engine. They fit really snug, and I'm really happy with the overall placement of them. However, once I was welding them in and finishing, the arc and the arms for the transmission mounts, I started to think, I really haven't tried the seats yet. I'm running Bride GS seats. They're gorgeous. I absolutely love them. They're my dream seats for this car. I was able to get them. And they're quite large compared to the stock seats that come in the Datsun 240, 260, or 280. So I never really thought maybe there would be clearance issues or anything of the such. So when I finally did put them in, I ran into some problems really quick. First of all, I noticed once I put the steering column in and put a wheel on it, actually sitting in the seat where the mounts were, the steering wheel was actually 1.5 inches inward from where I was sitting. So off of my center line, it was 1.5 inches in. Also too, I was noticing that the actual kind of shoulder arch was out of the door frame, and basically half of me was too. And then lastly, the other kind of odd thing was the placement of the seat was a few degrees outward off of the midline of the car. By that I mean, if the car was straight, I was angled this way. So these were all problems, and I tried to see if there may be a nice fix to this, something I could remedy. But ultimately, it was a matter of the tunnel being too big where the seat is. The seat is just wider than what's stock, and as a result, there needed to be some room made up. Guys with Datsuns out there, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But in the car along the tunnel, there's a rather large hump on the driver's side, and it's where the muffler for the original exhaust comes through. And it takes up quite a lot of room. So realizing this was going to be a clearance issue, I went ahead and chopped it out and knew I needed at least that 1.5 inches to get the seat where it needed to sit. So I chopped it, cleared it out, and started rebuilding in a way where I could gain 2 inches. That way I would have a little bit of room, you know, still between whatever the mounting bracket bolts would be and the rest of the tunnel. For rebuilding this, I decided to grab some 16 gauge steel, which again is thicker than the 18 or the 20 gauge in the rest of the car. Again, mostly because I could, and it's a little bit stronger, it's going to be sturdier, and at the end of the day I feel safer with it. So what I decided to do was take that 16 gauge and instead of doing it like in a sheet metal brake, I didn't want a really like crisp hard edge to it. I wanted this to look somewhat natural to the rest of the car. I wanted to look almost like it could have come from factory that way. So instead what I did is just had 2 pieces of wood, 2 2x4s, and clamped them together and just broke it over that. And it has a smaller, a more smaller radius of a curve than if I were to roll it, but still larger than if I had done it on a brake. The result I'm really happy with. I think it looks really good with the rest of the tunnel, and when it's all sprayed and it's all painted and it has that undercoating on it, I don't think anyone could really tell it's not original or it's not something of the like. And then it's just finishing out the rest of the bracing. Being again that the seats are wider, I mean the mounting is almost 16 inches across. The rest of it I just decided, instead of trying to make it work, just starting from scratch. And so I went and just bought some more 11 gauge steel plate or 1/8 inch steel plate and just started putting together what I thought would be pretty solid mounts for that seat. Again, I wanted them, you know, really strong and sturdy, but also in the event of a crash, I don't want them coming undone. I don't want to be thrown about inside of the car or anything like that. So I wanted something really strong, really rigid, and something that, again, I'm not going to have to worry about down the road. So building it out really thick material, I feel really good with. It was really just a matter of getting the seat where I knew I would want it, where I would be comfortable reaching the pedals, having the steering wheel, and still having good bend in my arms and my legs, so I'm not like reaching out for the wheel or I'm not like on top of it. So that's where I had started with it. Then it was just a matter of measuring. I do have a slight slant in the seat as far as the mounts. That's mostly just to make sure that where I'm sitting in the seat is pretty adequate, so I'm not, you know, my head isn't out of the moonroof and I'm not, you know, sitting through the floor. But I really try to make sure my eyes are seeing right through the middle of the windshield. That's kind of the ideal. And the rest of it was just a matter of measure, remeasure, measure 2 more times, and then finally cut. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you to those of you who are subscribed and are still following this build. I really appreciate it. It helps encourage me with the build and to actually keep this thing going now. For those of you who aren't subscribed, definitely subscribe to this channel. I'm hoping to be able to post quicker videos than this little bit of gap that I've had. Now that I'm getting more into stuff like suspension, engine, actually getting this thing into a rolling chassis, videos should be a little quicker to come out. They should have maybe more interesting content too. Also, follow me on Instagram at Old Datsun. I tend to stay up with that a lot more than I do on this YouTube channel, mostly because taking photos and leaving short descriptions is much quicker and easier for me. With that, I tend to leave just kind of snippet details of maybe a project I'm doing at the time. So thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.